Big round of applause.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for coming out to the Quest for Truth. I'm very honored to be a part of this wonderful gathering, and we're all here to gather for the truth, and we are seeking truth. A lot of times, though, we have to dig in to esoteric truth in order to find what our reality is telling us. And I do that all the time on my radio program, Ground Zero. Just to introduce myself to you. Ground Zero started in 1995. It was a show, I called it Ground Zero. 2 weeks later, the Oklahoma City bombing happened. They called it Ground Zero. I was asked to change the name of my show. I said, no, I'm not going to change the name because it reflects exactly what's going on. My show then continued. I went national. I was national from 2000 to 2001. I'm sure many of you probably know why I'm no longer national. The name of my show, Ground Zero, did not fare well with a lot of networks after I started, after I did it, because they thought that I had made up the name to talk about what happened to the World Trade Center. I said, no, it's not what happened. I said, I've had the name this long, I'm keeping the brand, because it seems to me that Ground Zero is always the place where opinions begin and all kinds of stories end. It's the tabula rasa. It is Ground Zero. It's where the bomb goes off. It's where everything is cleaned up. And this is where we begin. We begin at Ground Zero. My show, they just brought down the curtain, they can bring it up again if they will. My show today is about what I call the Necrolympics, or the Necrolympics. It's about the Olympic Games and how they are going to be coming to London in 2012 and how they're going to shape our lives because, quite frankly, the Olympics have always been an advertisement for the New World Order. They've always been a way to show that, yes, we can all pull together as a team, or we can all fight the wars together. We can all compete together in a happy world where groups that are secret officials, like the IOC officials, can rule us and tell us how to live. One of the examples of this is a book that was released, according to the book Philosophy of Olympianism by Russian author Lyubor Simonovich. The Olympics have always been a ritualistic demonstration of what is to be the ideal New World Order. And it's an example of how the elite gather together to watch the first athletes risk their lives, push themselves to the limits for unknown government reasons. The symbols are there, the symbolism is there, it's all part of the selling of the militaristic socialist order. Every aspect of mysticism and the occult is there at the Olympic Games. And I'm going to demonstrate that to you today with what we're seeing here today at our demonstration. Now, this is what he says in the book. He says, while around the world tens of thousands of athletes sacrifice their health and lives for the achievement of the Olympic medal, and thus try to take themselves out of the ghetto of poverty in which they die from hunger and disease, the gentlemen from the IOC, together with their families, stay in five-star hotels, which only one night costs several $1,000s, and they're arranged legendary feasts and receptions. Millions of dollars yearly are expended on the representatives and the representative gatherings for the world elite of power, which uses the Olympic Games as a means to create or at least sell the New World Order. And as you can see, that's exactly what we do in this ritual known as the Olympics. Now, it's not accidental that the founder of the modern Olympic Games, Baron Pierre de Coubertin, found his home in the motherland of fascist Germany. In fact, that's where it began. He believed that the Games should reflect the ideals of fascist socialist states, where races compete for superiority and where mankind can see the thrill of gladiatorial combat for the masters who are in global control. And you see that when you are participating or at least watching the Olympic Games. On May 13, 1931, the International Olympic Committee that was headed by Count Henry Valiant-Latour of Belgium awarded the 1936 Summer Olympic Games to Berlin, and the choice signaled it signaled Germany's quest for world domination. It basically showed us that Germany was in the business of trying to sell us that they are the New World Order, that they wanted to harness the Aryan race, the idea that they were better to exercise political control over citizens and to prepare German youth for war. Non-Aryans, Jewish or part Jewish, and Gypsy athletes were systematically excluded from German sports facilities and associations. They were allowed marginal training facilities, and their opportunities to compete were limited. You remember the story about Jesse Owens and how a black athlete showed the Aryans who was boss. And Hitler didn't like that because the whole idea of the Olympic Games was to sell us on the idea of Aryan superiority. Now, if you take a look at how the Olympics are the perfect machine, which was unsurpassed as staging elaborate public spectacles and rallies, they choreographed pageantry, they did all kinds of record breaking and all this stuff. In fact, the Germans, they had a great time in the Olympics getting all the gold medals. The Russians got great gold medals. In fact, Americans were not doing as well because they knew that this was their opportunity to show the world that they were superior. Propaganda efforts continued well after the Olympics as well. Hitler just took advantage of it. In 1938, there was actually a movie that was released called Olympia that was by Leni Riefenstahl, the same woman who was the propaganda master for Hitler, who did the movie Triumph of the Will. In fact, Germans were so desperate in convincing the world that their version of the Olympics were what the Greeks wanted, that they actually went to the Stone of Delphi and carved in the rings. They weren't there originally. In fact, the whole pageant of the Olympics now is not traditionally Greek. In fact, it's all full of Nazi and Masonic symbolism. If you take a look at what I'm showing you here, you see the towers of the unknown at the Olympic Stadium. You have the torch, which is the representation of Prometheus, Ashtar, and of course, you have the Masonic towers as well, which were also symbolic of the entryway into the unknown, or the entryway into time, where you pass through those towers and it's timeless. Heaven is there, the unknown is there. It's a well-known Masonic symbol. I wanted to read to you what Hitler had to say about what the Olympics were about. He said, "All of the supposed abominations, skeletons and death's heads and coffins and mystery were all bogies for children. But there is one dangerous element, that is the element I have copied from them. They are from a priestly nobility. They have developed an esoteric doctrine, not merely formulated, but imported through the symbols and mysteries and degrees of initiation. The hierarchical organization of the initiation through symbolic rites, that is to say, without bothering the brain, but by working on the imagination through magic and the symbols of occult. All this as a dangerous element, and the element I have taken over. Don't you see that our party must be of this character and order? That is what it has to be, an order. The hierarchical order of a secular priesthood, ourselves, or the Freemasons, or the church. There is room for one of three and no more. We are the strongest of the three and shall get rid of the other two." Hitler's job was to take over all the symbolism, to remove the church, remove masonry, and be the sole proprietor of magic and occult. That was his purpose as a dictator. That was his purpose as a world leader, and he almost made it. If you take a look, as you can see, the imagery of a one world order was also in the advertising that happened during the time of the war, during the time prior to the war, rather, during the Olympics, where you look at the psychological operation to desensitize and literally demonstrate that a new world order can also have some of the greatest things in life, like Coca-Cola. One people, one nation, one drink, Coke is it. That was the Olympic slogan for Coca-Cola back in the 1930s. It's amazing how, I think George was talking about how he's always tired of the corporations lying to us. I've always said that I wish someday they would fly the swastika over the White House so I don't have to guess anymore. That's what we see happening now. It's been going on from time at infinitum since the Nazis brought their scourge to this world. And it's hard to believe, and I know a lot of people always question, it's hard to believe that Americans have been brought up on wartime propaganda films and publications devoted to war ideologies and battles. World War II was largely the result of actually fighting between secret occult societies. Even our government was involved with the occult during this time. We hear about Raiders of the Lost Ark and how they were looking for the Ark of the Covenant. They were trying to beat Hitler at it, or this sort of Longinus. Truth is, it wasn't just Hitler that was a nut on the subject. Winston Churchill was a nut on the subject, and so was FDR. They all wanted to find those sacred scrolls and those sacred artifacts. In fact, Hitler wanted to be the sole religion. He was looking for a way to mix Christianity with what he was doing. They saw themselves as a quasi-religious movement born out of secret organizations whose goals were the same as those of the Illuminati and Freemasonry. Hitler himself acknowledged this by sharing with anyone who interpreted socialism as just a government. He said it was more than just a government. In fact, he was saying that it was truly a religious order. He wanted it to be the same as Christianity. He was trying to mix the two together, government, religion. It just was, his way of creating a mystical group. In fact, it was written anonymously by a French lawyer named Maurice Joly that, taking a political satire against the Machiavellian inspired machinations of Napoleon III, Joly actually reported that a friend of Victor Hugo and both members of the Order of the Rosicrucians were actually speaking of what is known as the Protocols of Zion, and how Hitler was reflecting all of those attributes as well, and how a lot of people believe that the Protocols of Zion are not real, that there really isn't an establishment to try to bring down a Jewish takeover. It's all part of the Jewish conspiracy that we conspiracy theorists talk about ad infinitum. But the priority of Zion has been the controversial secret agenda of the masters, which indicates that there is a plot to create a new world government led by a charismatic leader who possesses a false Jewish bloodline allegedly directly linked to Jesus Christ. This is where you find your Antichrist. If anyone comes forward and tells you that they are of the bloodline of Judah, or the bloodline of David, or the bloodline of Jesus, they are liars. They are counterfeiting the very Christianity that is supposed to be ruling or is supposed to be part of your lives. I know of only one group that does that, and that's the royal family. They trace their bloodlines back to Jesus and King David, and they believe that they're the sole heirs to the blood of Christ because many of them, along with the Merovingians and the Priory, believe that Jesus did not die on the cross when he was crucified, that his body was taken down, that he sired children in France, and that all of these children are now part of the bloodline of Christ, and that they are ruling over us now. So as you look around at the kings and queens, and people say, I think it was talked about, why do people worship these guys? Why they don't work, they don't do anything. Why are we having these jubilees? Why are we having these celebrations? Because they are the equivalent of God on earth to these people. They actually believe that they rule over you because of their bloodline. In fact, I have been quoted in Rolling Stone magazine that my pick for the Antichrist is Prince William. Mainly because of the fact that Prince William's name includes the word Arthur. And Arthur being king would be the once and future king, or the Rex Mundi, the king of the world. You know that Prince William and his wife were actually married on something called the Cosmatic Pavement, which is only set aside for kings who are meant to be kings and rulers of the world. And this is where, this is another show entirely. I think I got a video available where I talk about the AC/DC God and whether or not there's a philosophy of establishing Zion on the earth with a new Antichrist or a new Christ, one who believes that he is a descendant of Christ. This has been something that's been part of conspiracy circles for a long time. However, no one has the cojones to point a finger as to who's organizing this. I can tell you who's organizing this, and I can tell it with all truth to you. The European Union is the establishment of the new Nazi tyranny in Europe. And it's being headed by groups and individuals that are planning to place in office a person who will be the leader of the complete and total new world globalism, new world order, the ecumenical religious group, the caliphate of a faith, not the faith. And this should be happening soon. And the reason why is because the time is short and they need to establish it by 2013. 2012 is the magical year because all things are being planned around this. They're planning the Zion, the sun god routine, the dragon sun returning, all of this stuff is part of their agenda. And throughout history, there has been a number of people from Napoleon, Hitler, others, who want to establish a new Zion, but have failed miserably because of all the bloodshed and the horrible things that come with it. We're going to try it again. We don't learn from our past mistakes, apparently. You take a look at Zion being established in the world, you all look at the Olympics from Beijing in 2008. One world, one dream. And then if you take the logo and arrange it around a little bit, you see it spells out the word Zion. So, it's been the plan for some time to establish Zion ever since Beijing 2008. There is actually a song that is sung in England. The hymn is called Jerusalem. It's based on a poem called And Did Those Feet in Ancient Time by William Blake. The poem of the song is linked to an idea in the book of Revelation, both chapter 3, verse 12 and 21, verse 2, describing the second coming, wherein Jesus returns and establishes a new Jerusalem or Zion in England. It also implies that Jesus visited Europe after the crucifixion. This has been an agenda for a long time, a meme that is encouraged in churches. It's a hymn that's sung, and in those feet in ancient time, did he walk on these temple mills? Did he place his feet on England's green shores? They all believe that Jesus will return to England. Take a look at the logo now for the Olympic Games that are going to be in 2012. A lot of people say, what the heck is this? If you take and rearrange them, it spells out the word Zion again. They're trying to establish the new Zion again with these Olympics in 2012. Who knows what they have to do so, but the pageantry and all that is still around. And if you take a look at what this example of Newsweek saying, the decline and fall of Christian America, says the end of Christian America highlighted a poll showing that while 62% of Americans considered the U.S. a Christian nation, a staggering 68% say religion is losing its influence on Americans. The world is ready for its deliverance from evil, and the old-time religion is losing its flavor. So they need to find someone who's going to lead and be more, charismatic. Someone who's going to be a religious figure, a presidential figure. We got the apotheosis with Barack Obama. He's the John the Baptist, in a sense, bringing forward the idea that we can create a cult of personality that will lead us to wherever we go and we'll follow blindly. Now we're going to have another guy who's going to have the direct bloodline of Christ. And, of course, that may be announced at the Olympic Games. If you take a look at who's pushing this New World Order, you see that Gordon Brown was really in the mix of it. You see Michelle Obama hugging the Queen here in this little picture. You see Brown talking about the New World Order, and he also had stated that in order for this New World Order to happen, even Kissinger, they said we need to start the New World Order. We can have Barack Obama start it, and then eventually we'll announce to the world who the new leader is. We need economic stability, New World Order. We need safety, New World Order. We need a new religious figure, New World Order. If you read all the stuff about the New World Order, it's all written out for you, and it's intense. It's all intent. So, to review, if we want to see what this New World Order is all about, it'll have the nobility of Nazism, all the pageantry, all of it, and we will fall for it because it looks like a nice imperial cult, till eventually we're all swallowed in to the New World Order. And it is their plan, and they are planning their meeting in June for global sustainability, and they're going to be putting out the template for what will be the New World Order, all ready to go by the Olympics. It's funny, because I was doing some studies about the Olympics and what they're planning on. I was looking at, ever since the 1996 Atlanta Games, there's been a significant military component around the Olympic Games. If you take a look at what's happening with London, there's going to be 13,500 troops on the ground in London during the Olympic Games. 13,500 troops is more firepower and troop power than England had in Afghanistan. So this is not an Olympic Games, ladies and gentlemen, this is a war zone. Not to mention the thousands of people that are being employed to look for bombs, the thousands of people that are going to be in the stadiums looking for troublemakers, and the police agencies that will be on alert for anyone who decides to attack the Olympic Games. So they're waiting for something huge to go down. They have it all there. Civil emergency all ready to go. How many people remember the Olympic Games in 1972 by applause? Anyone? Do you realize that was our first 9/11, at least the one that we cared about the most? The thing that I find most interesting is I was doing the study for this show, the Black September movement actually took 11 Israeli hostages in the Munich, Germany Games. 11 Israeli hostages, and they killed all 11 of them. September is the 9th month. 11 hostages killed by the Black September movement. And it was done where there were 121 countries represented. If you divide 121 by 11, you get 11. 9/11, 9/11, 9/11, 9/11, everywhere 9/11. It's just bizarre the way this happened, but it did happen that way. You take a look at the logo of the Munich Games. It looks like an ancient sun symbol, the dark sun or the black sun symbol of the Nazi Fool Society. It's almost as if they were planning this. It's an occult symbol of the games. It was in Munich. I guess they couldn't help themselves. Who knows? But in the meantime, here's another occult signature, the Twin Towers at the Olympic Stadium. It's right there in front of everyone. September 11th, 1972, the games ended. 121 divided by 11, 121 countries represented. 121 divided by 11 is 11. Then, you look at Aleister Crowley, darkest magician ever, tells us about the number 9 and the number 11, what it represents. Take a look at this picture of him. He's going to be seeing another picture in just a minute. But look at what he's doing with his arms. His arms signify the 2 towers. In the middle is the head, or the stone, or that which is the eye of God, and the pyramid above the capstone. That picture is a representation of the darkest of magic of all. And he talks about how the number 9 is the number of evils. It's because of its stability. The number 11 is beginning again. So these are dark numbers, ladies and gentlemen, by the darkest of magicians being performed by them. They didn't go away since the 1930s. They've been going at it ever since. And then 29 years later, bam, we just hit the World Trade Center. If you take 2 plus 9, what do you get? 11. They planned it. It's all planned. That's what's creepy about all this, is that the more you dig, the more you take the onion and you unravel it, the more you find that these guys are doing the darkest of magicianry. They're doing the darkest of dark arts and chaos magic. It's just crazy. Here's a symbol of chaos used for the Olympics in Beijing. They rely heavily on sigils. They rely heavily on sequences and numbers. That's what they do because it's nothing more than psychological warfare. They use all of this chaos magic and psychological warfare to manipulate an outcome. Now, I like that. Let me show you something. They use everything. Right before the Olympic Games in Beijing, notice this, right before the Olympic Games in Beijing, members of the IOC were concerned about a prophecy that was written by Nostradamus. And they wanted to be prepared for anything because the prophecy dealt with all-out war during what was named the Games of Slaughter. Okay? And they were worried that that was the games he was speaking of. It says, I have to read this to you. It says, when the great empire of the Antichrist will begin, where once Attila's empire and the new Xerxes will descend with great and countless numbers, so that the coming of the Holy Ghost proceeding from the 48th degree will make transmigration, chasing out the abomination of the Christian church, and whose reign will be for a time to the end of time. This will be preceded by a solar eclipse more dark and gloomy than at any time in creation of the world, except that after the death and passion of Jesus Christ. And it will be in the month of October that the great translation will then make its way and will be such that one will think that the gravity of the earth has lost its natural movement and that it's to be plunged into the abyss of perpetual darkness. Now, it says that the great empire of the Antichrist will begin where once Attila's empire was. That's extending from Europe and Russia. The new Xerxes will descend with great and countless numbers, so that the coming of the Holy Ghost proceeding from the 48th degree will make a transmigration, chasing out the abomination of the Christian church, whose reign will be for a time to the end of time. Then it says, the year of the great 7th number accomplished, it will appear at the time of the games of slaughter, not far from the age of the great millennium, when the dead will come out of their graves. The games of slaughter had to be the Olympics because they were between 2007 and 2008. Now, this will be preceded, it said in the prophecy, it's supposed to be preceded by a solar eclipse more dark and gloomy than any since the creation and the crucifixion of Christ. Well, Chinese astrologers, they were freaking out. Well, you can't have the Olympic Games during an eclipse. Everybody will die. There'll be problems. So what did they do? They decided to take out their lucky number, which is the number 8. And they said, we're going to have the Olympics on August 8th. So, 8/8/8, 8-month, 8th day, 2008, the Olympics began. Guess what happened on that day? Well, the 8 is the lucky number for the Chinese. I just talked about that. This is what happened on 8/8/8. Russia declared war on Georgia. And it was a massive U.S. naval armada that was heading for Iran. They were gathering for war. You'd never guess where that war was taking place. It was happening on the 48th parallel, just like what Nostradamus said. It'll happen to the 48th degree. The games of slaughter, the Olympics, the Eclipse, all there. Chinese were panicking. They didn't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is happening to us. Then, of course, we take a look at the eclipse. See it move across? The eclipse moved. It began from the Canadian area, passed over Greenland, western Siberia, Mongolia, and guess where it landed? China, just like they had planned, just like Nostradamus had said it would. They were getting more frightened. So we look at the eclipse. Passed over the area that was at war. 48th north degree, including the Georgian area of Russia, Iran, and the Gulf, with its final stop in China where the Olympics were being held. I don't know if you can see this picture, but this was China. It was so dark that it was almost dusk all times when this eclipse happened with the smog in the air. They said it was so bad they couldn't even see their hand in front of their faces. Many people know that an eclipse is a representation of Ouroboros, or the dragon eating its tail. It's a representation of the end of the world. It's a representation of the rebirth of the end of the world. There's an ending and then a rebirth, and that's what that represents. The serpent, dragon eating its tail, is known as the Ouroboros, as I said, resurrection, regeneration, new epoch, new era. But there's also some other stuff that they were afraid of. Superstition in China says that when an eclipse happens, spirits come jumping out of the mirrors at you. And they're saying that things happen. You start seeing weird sigils and all kinds of strange magic happen during an eclipse. Lo and behold, these were made. And people were afraid that these were the evil spirits that they were worried about. Now they're just little dolls, little mascots, right? At the Olympics. They could mean absolutely nothing. Well, apparently, the people who thought that they were these strange sigils, these strange magical sigils, they happen to be representations of where major disasters happen in China. This is Jingjing, a panda, a totem representing Sichuan. That's where they had their 7.9 earthquake during the time of the Olympics. Right there, representation. Here's Huanhuan. It's proposed as a fire elemental. The image came to represent the protests against the International Olympic Torch Rally. They tried to kill the people bringing the torch. Then we have Yin Yang, Tibetan antelope. It was also a reminder of the demonstrations in Tibet, where there were many people who were killed, many monks who were killed in Tibet. Then the swallow Nini represented the kite city of Weifang in the Shandong province, another site of a horrible train disaster during the Olympics. And the final, Fua, which was a fish, there was no curse associated with it until there was some flooding in southern and central China that killed dozens of people. So were they all magical sigils that represented all the countries and the areas where these horrible disasters took place? It's anyone's guess. But if you take a look at the Olympic stadium, the architecture shows us a bunch of nice little pentagrams in it. They have all the symbolism there. They were toying with all the symbolism, all the sigils, all the magic, and look what happened during the Olympics. One big Necrolympics, one big death fest, one big wonderful, cell of the New World Order. So as you can see, as I pointed out, all these ritualistic procedures go on during the Olympics, and we see a lot of death, a lot of war, a lot of craziness. And we have these Olympics coming up in London. What are they going to have happen? Well, I really don't know. I mean, there have been many theories surrounding the future of the London Olympic Games, anything from an alien landing to a nuclear detonation. One thing's for sure, though, London is preparing for war. They're not preparing for a peaceful gathering. They're preparing for war. They're preparing for attack. The stadium's architecture is also filled with Illuminati imagery. The lights above the stadium look like pyramids, similar to the Illuminati eye above the pyramid. See those? Did you see that? See they're there. So the imagery's already started with the stadium. Okay. Now, just found this out the other day. The stadium and some of the facilities surrounding the stadium built on a Superfund site. Radioactive tailings and garbage. They just built right over the top of it. So you know what they're dealing with now? Methane poisoning and radioactive poisoning at the site. And they're wondering what they can do to do the cleanup. They're not going to do anything. They're saying there's too much going on and people won't be affected by it. So everyone who goes to the Olympics are going into a death hole. That's the way it goes. When big money talks, they don't seem to change anything, but there you go, Superfund site. Documents have been submitted for planning and approval, reveal that radioactive tailings were on the site. 2 documents warned of buried radioactive waste near the site of the basketball area. And so they're trying to excavate it and move it elsewhere, but it just seems to be, you can't push radioactivity away. You just can't do that. So, we now get into a very fun time in this lecture. I've given you all the background and the facts. Now we're going to talk about predictive programming. And a lot of people have an idea of what predictive programming is. I like to sum it up as what it is, is echoes in transit. What it is that you're hearing things, you're hearing about the event before it happens. You see it in television shows, you see it in movies, you read it in books. You see it everywhere, and you don't even realize you're seeing it until it happens. And then you can say to yourself, didn't I see that in a movie? Like the zombie apocalypse that we're having right now. Didn't we hear about people eating people in a movie? They're coming to get you, Barbara. Yeah. No. See, that's what predictive programming is. It's an approximation of what may happen. Now, to give you an idea of the echoes in transit and how time can be altered, and how we can see all this time being altered by giving us the event before it actually happens, I have to go back to 9/11, because the idea of the hidden psychological warfare that's going on has to be demonstrated to you in order for you to understand that there will be something, we don't know what, but it will be happening at the Olympic Games. For example, in the movie Stargate 1994, the minute they travel through the Stargate, what's the first thing they see? They see the Twin Towers. Now, we've been seeing that imagery all day today, haven't we, in this lecture? It's all been there. Back in 1993, Super Mario Brothers. Take a look at those trade towers. Destroyed in the movie. Destroyed by the evil reptiles. And a portal was supposedly there in between the towers as well. This is Independence Day. Check out where the alien ship is blasting everything. Right there, folks. Twin Towers. Getting annihilated. Well, how much time do we have before the aliens destroy us? 9 minutes and 11 seconds. That was in the movie. And that was before the towers came down. Now, here's something interesting. This is Armageddon, 1998. Check out those towers. Destroyed. Destroyed by a meteor. This is where the spaceships are supposed to count down to go save the planet. They stopped the clock at 9/11 because of the fact that we were being hit by the meteors. One of the cab drivers in the show said, "Oh my God, they've hit the towers. I bet Saddam Hussein had something to do with that. He's bombing us." That was in the movie before the whole thing went down. Traffic, 2000. Check out those boxes right there. 911, 911, 911. And then here, there's a scorpion, right? There's actually a book called Allah's Scorpion. It was released it was published in 2007 after the fact, but it was a work of fiction. It actually described Al-Qaeda's plot against America as Operation Scorpion. It was also a secret military set up by Dick Cheney to instigate the Gulf War. How many people believe 9/11 was an inside job? I applaud. How many people have read The Project for a New American Century? By applause. PNAC. Who wrote it? Dick freaking Cheney. It's the Mein Kampf of our time. Read it and realize what they planned, and then you'll see that 9/11 was really an inside job. If you watch the show The Big Lebowski, which is one of my favorite movies, the dude is in a Ralph store, and he writes the date on the check as September 11th, 1991. That date's very important for conspiracy theorists because it was the day where George Bush goes, a new world order. We're going to establish a new world order. On September 11th, 1991. Here's Fight Club, 1999. Notice they're waiting for the two towers to come down. They're ready to blow it up. And you know what's funny about this whole thing? Brad Pitt says before they go down, this is it, ground zero. Do you have anything to say before the occasion? Yeah, 1999. The Simpsons, they can't even escape it. Little Lisa, not Lisa, the little baby holding up New York, 9/11. Because Homer has to go get his car that's been overparked where? World Trade Center. Here's Enemy of the State. The guy who we're investigating, the senator that was the corrupt senator, was born on 9/11, 1940. Matrix, one of my favorites. This is Neo's passport. And it shows that it expires on September 11, 2001, the day of the attacks of the World Trade Center. Then, of course, I had an opportunity to meet with my good friend Dean Hagelin, who was with the Lone Gunman episode called Pilot. It was done in March prior to the attacks, where the plot of the story was to fly an airplane into the World Trade Center. Well-known predictive program. And still, to this day, we wonder what is all. I mean, this is even a Federal Emergency Management Agency Department of Justice manual published about terrorism in May of 1998. And if you notice, the towers are the target. So, Twin Towers, why are they so important? Why do we see them in the Olympics? Why do we see them in all this? Because they are the towers of masonry. They are the entrance to the truth. They are the entrance to time. They are the time immortality, eternal time, time with no time. That is what it is. Because God does not see, the architect does not see time. He sees all. You pass through those towers, and that's where time exists. That's where time is. That's where the mystery is. Twin Towers. The new towers, the Masonic towers. There you have that picture of him again. Notice, he has the Twin Towers. His head is the stone in the middle representing the eye of God, or the Ben stone, as they call it. And then the pyramid is the capstone. You know what that is? Anybody? That is known as the Ben stone. You know where that Ben stone was? It was between the two towers in New York. They salvaged it after the attacks on the World Trade Center, and they put it in a park. The stone, the Ben stone, is known as the capstone. It was the great stone, the marker of time, the eye of God. It's where the sunlight hits it to represent that, yes, another day has begun. It basks in the glory of God, and it stands between the two towers. The two towers and the Ben stone were a huge representation of time with no time. And it was destroyed. Now, there are at least two other places where we see a timepiece similar. Can anybody guess where they are? Mecca. Those of you that don't know this, you know they're making a big deal about the mosque near the World Trade Center? Get a clue. The World Trade Center was made to be Mecca. It was made to look like Mecca. You have your two towers, you have your Kaaba stone in the middle of the box, and you have a huge clock looking over the two towers and the Ben stone in the box. That stone is from God, allegedly. That's what they believe. And they walk around in a Fibonacci swirl because it represents time, a place where there's no time, no heaven, no earth. It's all there. It's the same as it was in New York. Here's the other place. Whoops, go back. Oh, no, okay. The other place is is where the Olympics are. They have situated the Olympic Stadium by streets that are named after religious things. Temple Mill Lane, the Knights Templar, Layton Road, Carpenter Road, like Joseph's Road, Angel Lane, Great Eastern Star Road. All these things, Masonic and religious. They're all sitting on ley lines. There's also Layton Road, which is on a ley line, which is a very powerful, magical line for some of these magicians. The stadium itself is sitting at Greenwich Basin Meridian. Do you know what Greenwich Basin Meridian is? 0 time. It's where time ends. It sits on the Greenwich Basin Meridian. What overlooks the stadium? A big clock. What is the name of the clock? Big Ben. Ben time place. The eye looking over the stadium. All symbolic. They named it Queen Elizabeth Tower now. I know. But Big Ben, it's the same. It's a coincidence, yes. It really is. Big eye looking over the city, big eye is the mascot. The eye of Horus, imagery's all there. So, with all of what you've been seeing, also a lot of predictive programming that points to a possible ritual event that will happen at the 2012 Olympics. It will change the way we perceive time, past, present, and future. It'll be something that will have us all in awe. Here's some predictive programming for you. You see this image of England getting taken down? Bombs going off everywhere? That's from a G.I. Joe film that's going to be coming out soon. They delayed it because of the symbolism of this. The whole city of London buckles and is obliterated. New G.I. Joe film. It's pretty scary to watch the whole city getting taken down, but it does. This is from a TV series on the BBC called Spook 9. This was released in 2008. Shows the clock counting down and the city of London going up in a ball of flame. The bomb to the Olympic Stadium. V for Vendetta. Notice how we watch the Parliament go up and Big Ben go up as well. These are all things that have happened prior to the possibility now of an event in London. Even the movie 2012, the 30th Olympic Games suspended. Now they're having rioting in Downing Street. This was shown in the film. Also, there's another point in the film where he grabs a map out of the vehicle as the asteroids are coming down. It says London Underground. It doesn't make any sense, but it does say London Underground. So a lot of people are speculating that perhaps there's going to be an attack in the London Underground. And this is the big one. Remember I was showing you the pamphlet that showed the towers that had the crosshairs on it? Remember I showed that a while back? Well, someone handed me this Rockefeller document about how we can prepare for future emergencies and how we can act quickly to revert a crisis. The report was issued by the Rockefeller Foundation in 2010. It outlines plans for the continuation of the New World Order and sustainability after approximated catastrophes occur within the next decade. They called the decade between 2010 and I think 2020 the decade of doom. And what they cite is incredible. On page 34, it reads, there were devastating shocks like September 11th, the Southeast Asian tsunami of 2004, the 2010 Haiti earthquake, and also between 2010 and 2020 dubbed the doom decade for good reason, the 2012 Olympic bombing, which killed 13,000 people. 13,000. It was followed by an earthquake in Indonesia, which killed 40,000. Why would they put this out in 2010 saying that there would be 13,000 killed at the Olympic Games? Unless this is planned. I know it's speculation, but this is an official document put out by the Rockefeller Foundation, page 34, and you can read it. They actually say there will be a plague. They mentioned earlier there will be a plague that will hit the earth prior to the Olympics. They say the plague will be terrible because it will be bacteria that will not be able to be curtailed or contained. They don't come right out and say it, but the zombie apocalypse. All this bacteria, people are eating people, E. coli breakouts, CDC can't even control it. I know this is a coincidence, but it's a damn grave coincidence. So like a weatherman predicts storms and like doctors determine health problems with symptoms, you can now see for yourself that the future is becoming designed by those who are in power. It is now difficult to determine coincidence, determinism, cognitive association, and synchronicity. It's hard to determine it now. There are many people that have said that irony is dead. However, I have determined that the power of Layton have taken a lesson from Hermetic Arcanum, and they are actually demonstrating for you what they're about to do. I have to tell you that this is all speculation. I have to tell you this is all approximation. So what I'm going to do for you now is I'm going to leave it up to you. What do you think the future is going to hold for the 2012 Olympics? After I've demonstrated to you what's been done in the past, what's been going on in the present, and only you can understand the future because you have a hand in it. I'm Clyde Lewis. Thank you for being here. Good night. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then Aaliyah Ananaten will take the stage to give her presentation, The Event Horizon, Crossing the Event Horizon.